Alright guys, we are back and we're getting right into this next segment where we're talking about the top storylines for the conference finals. We're going to get right into this, but before we talk about that, I would love to remind you guys that if you have any questions or comments for me to read out loud live on air, use the gsmcpodcast.net tips and donations link with any of that. It helps out a lot for everybody here. Everybody here really deserves it. So, tips and donations link at the gsmcpodcast.net. But without further ado, we're going to get right into this as my screen crashed. So let me pull that back up so I can keep you guys up to date with the Panthers-Rangers game. Since we're doing this real time while the Panthers-Rangers game is going, while it is going on, I would love to keep an eye on that one as we're going through these segments here. Segment 2 right here, talking about the top storylines for the conference finals. All right, my number one storyline is a lot of these players on the teams share a former home, and that former home resided in Columbus, Ohio, as you have 7 individuals that are a part of this series played or was a part of the Columbus Blue Jackets organization at one time of their career. For the New York Rangers, you have, and we're going to start off with Jonathan Quick, who was there for 1 day, so he doesn't really count. But Jonathan Quick, former Blue Jacket. Artemi Panarin was a former Blue Jacket. Alexander Wennberg was drafted by the Columbus Blue Jackets, and Jack Roslovic, former Columbus Blue Jacket from Dublin, Ohio. Of course, that got talked about for the Columbus Blue Jackets a lot. They had a lot of former Columbus kids, and Jack Roslovic was one of them. So that's the former Blue Jackets on the New York Rangers side of things. On the Florida Panthers side of things, you have the current GM, Bill Zito. He was the assistant GM under Jarmo Kekalainen in Columbus. Sergei Bobrovsky absolutely was a Blue Jacket, won the Vezina twice in Columbus in 2013 and 2017. And then you have Kevin Stenlund, a Blue Jackets draft pick, who was a part of... He went to Winnipeg, but I don't know if he was a part of the Patrick Laine and Pierre-Luc Dubois trade. I'm not certain about that. So... a lot of former Blue Jackets a part of this series. Of course, I am a little bit more familiar than most with that team. I am from Columbus, Ohio, I must say that. So that is why I know all of this off the top of my head, really. I think it is interesting to see because, it shows how much talent that 2019 team had in Columbus that was unable to get past the second round, past the Boston Bruins. But it shows you how they were able to sweep the Tampa Bay Lightning in the first round, the best regular season team of all time at that time. The biggest storyline here is Bobrovsky versus Panarin, the two Russians who had the falling out with John Tortorella in Columbus at the same time. Both of them kind of, were destined for free agency at the end of that season. And while they were both free agents, Florida Panthers tried to sign both of them, wanted to team them back up on the same team, but they only were able to sign Sergei Bobrovsky for 7 years. Artemi Panarin did sign with the New York Rangers a couple days after Bobrovsky signed with the Florida Panthers, or they might have signed on the same day, actually, now that I think about it. But he, of course, signed a 7-year deal with the New York Rangers in that free agency. So, two former Blue Jackets who were big friends or great friends. There are pictures of them. There's this picture that's in my brain of them standing in Sergei Bobrovsky's flat with both of their shirts off. It's a funny one. If you want to look up just Sergei Bobrovsky and Artemi Panarin pictures, I bet it will come up just with a quick Google search. But that is the top storyline in this Eastern Conference Final, I think, is Panarin versus Bob. And then on the other side, I think the biggest storyline in the Western Conference Final is McDavid and Draisaitl. Are they able to have this kind of legacy playoffs that we all expect them to have. McDavid and Draisaitl, of course, Edmonton Oilers' finest, two absolute superstars. McDavid might be the greatest hockey player we have ever seen since Mario Lemieux debuted in the 80s or Wayne Gretzky debuted in the 80s. So Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, neither of them have even gone to the Stanley Cup Finals yet. You think it's going to happen soon. This team it's way too talented, the forward group, and they have Evan Bouchard who's performing. So you think that it's going to have to happen, but you're now going up against the very talented and younger Dallas Stars with Wyatt Johnston, with Rupint, with I forget. Logan Stankoven, that's the other. I knew there was three young guys on that team. Logan Stankoven, of course, being the rookie of the three there. So it's a very young team in Dallas. But then you also have Joe Pavelski. You also have Jamie Benn. Of course, you have Ryan Sutter. All these veterans on the Dallas Stars looking to get their first cups together. So it is the old mix with the new in Dallas, and then the superstars of Edmonton. We kind of talked about that a little bit when it came to the Edmonton Oilers versus the Vancouver Canucks. Of course, the Vancouver Canucks had a lot of forward depth. Elias Lindholm is the one that comes to mind. Brock Besser, not too old, but of course being a kind of veteran of the NHL now. So very comparable to last series that they had, but I think it's just a little bit better. And the young pieces for the Dallas Stars look a little bit better than the young pieces for the Vancouver Canucks, especially with Elias Pettersson not performing and Quinn Hughes not performing. Another big storyline in the Western Conference Final, I think you have to talk about Evan Bouchard, of course, Edmonton Oilers, number one defenseman, versus Miro Heiskanen, the Dallas Stars number one defenseman. Both of those guys have proven throughout this playoffs that they are bona fide, number one defensemen that are, having just amazing seasons, and even better postseasons is what I was trying to say. Especially with Evan Bouchard, who really has broken out in this postseason. The 24-year-old defenseman, still very young. Miro Heiskanen is still very young too. I believe he's 23 or 24, if I'm not mistaken. So both of them having really great breakout playoffs, and we're seeing improvement from them every single game that they play too. So McDavid and Draisaitl having a legacy playoffs is my second biggest storyline for the conference final. Number 3 is Vincent Trocheck returns to Florida. Vincent Trocheck is on his kind of revenge tour this postseason. He of course was drafted by the Florida Panthers back in 2013, a former third-round pick. He was traded then to the Carolina Hurricanes in 2021, played 2 seasons in Carolina, and signed with the New York Rangers in this past offseason. So Vincent Trocheck, already being one former team in the Carolina Hurricanes, now playing against his second former team in a row in the Florida Panthers. This one might hit a little bit closer to home for him. Of course, playing in Florida for, I believe it was 8 years. You're going to have a lot more ties to that team than you have ties to the Carolina Hurricanes. So, Vincent Trocheck going back to Florida is my second biggest topic, third biggest topic in the conference finals. We'll see if he can get on the board for the New York Rangers, as that game has gone into intermission. 1-0 Florida Panthers still on top of the New York Rangers in this game 1 in New York. Barkov and Ekblad is my number 4 topic for the conference finals. Alexander Barkov and Aaron Ekblad are hometown kids in Florida, not like grown up in Florida, but they were their draft picks during very hard times. In 2012, they draft Jonathan Huberdeau. In 2013, they draft Alexander Barkov. In 2014, they draft Aaron Ekblad. It's unfortunate that we're seeing the Florida Panthers win without Jonathan Huberdeau because he was really the catalyst for all of this. However, they do get Matthew Tkachuk from him. A little bit change of scenery for both of those guys has led to kind of both of them having great careers so far. But yeah, Alexander Barkov and Aaron Ekblad winning in Florida is something that I love to see. Of course, we talked about 2013 second overall draft pick, 2014 number 1 overall draft pick in Aaron Ekblad. So the Florida Panthers really raised these guys from 18 years old to be who they are, the people that they are, the men that they are today, and being the hockey players that they are. More importantly, for the Florida Panthers, seeing wins, Barkov winning his second Selke of his career, Aaron Ekblad being an absolute fantastic defenseman in the NHL in his own right. You are very, very happy if you're Florida getting what you've gotten from the careers of Aaron Ekblad and Alexander Barkov. And then my last topic I'll talk about, the last little storyline here, is the Russian goalie matchup in the Eastern Conference Final, as my screen goes out. The Russian goalie matchup in the Eastern Conference Final is my next topic. We're talking about Igor Shesterkin versus Sergei Bobrovsky. We talked about it in the first segment, how important that matchup is for the series, but I think it also plays a big storyline because, both of them want to be the top Russian goaltender in a league that has amazing Russian goaltenders all around it. Of course, Alexander Georgiev, Ilya Sorokin. See if I can name any more off the top of my head as I'm just spewing these out here. But yeah, Daniil Tarasov, that Blue Jackets goalie, that's a Russian. But, a lot of great Russian goaltenders throughout the league, and these are the top two, undisputed. I guess Ilya Sorokin could be in the conversation, but I still think these two are the top two best Russian goaltenders in the NHL. Jeremy Swayman, Jake Oettinger both have a hat in the ring for best goaltender in the NHL, but when we're talking about just the Russians, it's really these two. And seeing that matchup in the Eastern Conference is going to be very exciting for this entire series. And with that being said, guys, that's going to wrap it up for our second segment of the top storylines in the conference finals. When I come back, we're going to be talking about the NHL PR and how they announced today that this has been the most watched Stanley Cup playoffs through 2 rounds so far.